Scientific race theory is the pseudoscientific belief that the human species can be subdivided into different races based on racial superiority. This theory was considered acceptable before the mid-20th century, but is not considered scientific now. There were some authors who wrote books to back this theory. Here we make a list of those authors and their books. 1. Arthur de Gobineau. Arthur de Gobineau wrote an essay on the inequality of the human races in the immediate aftermath of the revolutions of 1848, in which he argued that civilizations decline and fall when the races are mixed, and that the white race is superior. He felt that aristocrats were superior to commoners, and that aristocrats possess more Aryan genetic traits because of less interbreeding with inferior races. His work was praised by pro-slavery Americans like Josiah C. Nott and Henry Hodes. His work was ignored in France, but inspired a social movement in Germany named Gobinism, which influenced prominent anti-Semites like Richard Wagner and leaders of the Nazi Party. 2. Houston Stewart Chamberlain. Houston Stewart Chamberlain is a British-born German philosopher whose best-known book is the two-volume The Foundations of the 19th Century, which was published in 1899. The book became highly influential in the pan-Germanic folkish movements of the early 20th century, and later influenced the anti-Semitism of Nazi racial policy. Chamberlain advances various racist theories in his book, like how he saw the Aryan race as superior to others, and the Teutonic peoples as a positive force in European civilization, and the Jews as a negative one. The book focused on the claim that the Teutonic peoples were the heirs to the empires of Greece and Rome, and when the Germanic tribes destroyed the Roman Empire, Jews and other non-Europeans already dominated it, and the Germans, by destroying the Roman Empire, saved Western civilization from Semitic domination. 3. Madison Grant. Madison Grant was an American zoologist, eugenicist, and advocate of scientific racism. He authored the book, The Passing of the Great Race, which was published in 1916, in which he claimed that the Nordic race is inherently superior to other human races. The book played an active role in crafting immigration restriction and anti-miscegenation laws in the United States. The theory and the book were praised by Adolf Hitler and other Nazis. 4. Alfred Rosenberg. Alfred Rosenberg was one of the principal ideologues of the Nazi Party and editor of the Nazi newspaper Völkischer Beobachter, who authored the seminal work of Nazi ideology, The Myth of the 20th Century, which was published in 1930. The book sold more than 1 million copies by 1944. Hitler awarded a state prize for art and science to Rosenberg for the book in 1937. The book makes the claim that the Nordic race originated in Atlantis, and that their nobility justified the enslavement and even mass murder of non-Aryan races. Rosenberg conceived this book as a sequel to Chamberlain's book The Foundations of the 19th Century. He was convicted of crimes against humanity and other crimes at the Nuremberg trials, and was sentenced to death by hanging and executed on October 16, 1946. 5. Lothrop Stoddard. Lothrop Stoddard was an American political scientist who published his book, The Rising Tide of Color Against White World Supremacy, in 1920. In it, he describes the collapse of white supremacy and colonialism because of the population growth among people of color, rising nationalism in colonized nations, and industrialization in China and Japan. To counter the perceived geopolitical threat, Stoddard advocated Nordicism, racial segregation, and restricting non-white immigration into white-majority countries. He also propounded the separation of Nordic races and warned against the mixing of races. 6. Francis Galton. Francis Galton was a British polymath who published his book, Hereditary Genius, in 1869. In the book, he claimed that the sons of men whom he considered eminent in a given profession were more likely to achieve such eminence themselves than if they were not closely related to eminent individuals. He interpreted this pattern as evidence for genetic transmission of human intelligence, without considering the environment. That is, he argued that nature was more crucial in the transfer of genius than nurture.